Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable, my supervisor, Ma'am Gita Mutiara Hati and Ma'am Indah Damayanti. The Honorable, my examiner, Sir Mulyadi and Ma'am Kasmaini. Today, I will present my seminar proposal about an analysis of the autonomy level of EESP students. Before I start to present my seminar proposal today, let me introduce myself. My name is Fitri Ade Andriani. I am a student of English Education Study Program, University of Bengkulu. I divided my topic today into 3 points. First, introduction. Second, literature review. And the last is methodology. Chapter 1, Introduction. Background. An autonomous learner is a learner who has responsibility for his learning in an independent manner, based on Hicks 1988. It means that the student has desire to learn independently because the student feels learning is his responsibility. Based on Dickinson 1995, explains autonomous learning is now not only to allow students to cater the learning content and speed to their own needs, but also to motivate learning and to lead them to greater language learning. It means that an autonomous learner will more quickly to get knowledge about learning because the students has desire to learn on his own. Then they will have high learning motivation because of the great sense of learning. In this study, the researcher will analyze students in EESP or English Education Study Program. Students in EESP are EFL or English as a Foreign Language students. EFL students must be an autonomous learner to get a lot of knowledge because they are foreigners in this language. Based on Yoko Iwai 2011 defined that EFL refers to those who learn English in non-English speaking countries. It means that like students who learning English outside of English speaking countries, students in Indonesia learning English in this country as the foreigners. According to the researcher, in this class, in English Education Study Program, student enthusiasm for learning doesn't illustrate that 100% of students in English Education Study Programs are autonomous students. It can be seen from some of the students who aren't active when the lecturer explains. They only accept what is given by a lecturer. So, the researchers want to analyze about autonomy level. It is especially in students at EESP students, University of Bengkulu. The researchers want to know exactly how many students are autonomous students in EESP. The the researcher will use an instrument in the form of a questionnaire that will answer the autonomy level of students at EESP. Second, problem statement. In this study, researchers will conduct the study about an analysis of the autonomy level of ESP students. Before doing the study, the researchers get some review studies about autonomy like a descriptive analysis of learner autonomy in English language classroom in the second grade students of senior high school Asalapi Susukan by Horiana 2018. Then, the other researchers conducted the study about autonomous belief, and entitled An Investigation of Undergraduate Students' Beliefs about Autonomous Language Learning by Ori Wiwatnakul and Wichade 2017. This study aimed to examine how undergraduate students believe about autonomous language learning in a university setting. Furthermore, the current study investigates the levels of autonomy among senior non-native English students and the role of their university instructors in promoting autonomous learning. Autonomous learning levels of students majoring in EFL and the role of their teachers in developing autonomous learning by Abdel Razak 2018. Third research question. The research question in this research is what is the autonomy level of ESP or English Education Study Program students? And four, limitation of the problem. In this research, the researcher will limit the discussion just to get information about the level of autonomous learners in English Education Study Program. And five is about the objective of the problem. The objective of the problem in this research is to find out the level of autonomy learners in ESP English Education Study Program, and also six, significance of the research. The significance of this research is first, lecturer, and second, future researcher. Lecturer in this research can use this research to be a guide to the lecturer to know how much autonomy learners in English education. It can make the lecturer can easy to know best way to teach in English education. And also future researcher. The future researchers can use this research to be a guide to future researchers who want to make similar research. And then key terms. The key terms in this research is autonomy level. The autonomy level is about how autonomous learners in English education study program. Under chapter 2. Chapter 2 is literature review. First, autonomy. Autonomy is a situation in which the learner is responsible for all the decisions concerned with his or her learning and the implementation of those decisions, based on Dickinson 1987. And then Durden 1975 argues that autonomy is an activity of the mind and is present in making choice, deliberations, decision, reflection, judging, planning, and reasoning. Based on Chala 1988, autonomy is an ideal with intrinsic value with freedom as an important component. It means that the conception of autonomy described implies that all individuals are self-directing and self-controlling their lives within a context which includes the autonomy of others. Based on Sans 2009 links autonomy relatedness needs, which specifically are the need for context, support, and community with others, leading to autonomous independence. And then Littlewood, 1999, suggested that the relatedness idea is a suitable concept for Isaiah in his study. This relatedness concept focuses on the need for learners to feel both autonomous and part of social network. Littlewood, 1999. Similar to this view of interdependence, Andrade and Bunker 2009 focus on relatedness between teachers and learners. So teacher and learners have a relatedness to make autonomy. Based on Cotterell 2000, state the essential characteristic of instructional programs fostering autonomy is how they scaffold instruction functioning as learners' guidance, not their control of the decision-making process. Second, autonomous learner. Based on Holek define learner autonomy as the learner's ability to take charge of his, her learning. Other writers since Holek have modified this definition in part depending on whether they see learner autonomy as a means to an end or the end product itself. Based on David Little's terms, learner autonomy is essentially a matter of the learner's psychological relation to the process and content of learning's capacity for involvement, critical reflection, decision making, and independent action, based on Little 1991, page 4. And also, based on Dam 1990, defines autonomy in terms of learner willingness and capacity to control or oversee her learning. It means that autonomy is terms of their willingness and capacity to learning. Based on Dickinson 1995 characterized learner autonomy as those who have the capacity for being active and independent in the learning process. It means that characterize characteristic of autonomy students is like a capacity that they're active and independent when the teacher when the teachers teaching in the class like that. So in the in the learning process we can know the capacity of the students based on Hicks 1988, page 41, that view learners autonomy as the process in which the learner works on learning tasks or activity and largely independent of the teachers who acts as manager of the learning programs and as resource person. Based on S 1996 defines learner autonomy is not self-instruction or learning without a teacher, which doesn't learn that intervention or initiative on the part of teachers is banned. We understand that autonomy learner has responsibility for all decisions that they have chosen in their learning process. In another word, they are already known for what they want to learn in the sense that they act independently of the teacher without remaining idea or waiting for what to do from the teachers. Third factor influencing autonomous learners, based on Hicks 1988, says that four factors influence the autonomous learner. First, the role of learners themselves. Based on Hicks 1998, state that past educational experience influence autonomous learner. So it means that um, the role of ourselves can influence to be autonomous learners. And then teachers, the teacher, the role of the teacher that in learner autonomy, the teacher students relationship is crucial. The teacher have a important role in helping students to learn about the process involved in learning. This process create autonomous learner. And then the task in this case students will get a lot of tasks to be done if if the students are if the students are autonomous learners, so he or her can do a lot of exercise. And then the environment can also influence the autonomous learners. Based on UN Pi 1997, a conducive learning environment is needed to facilitate learning. It means that um, if the situation is conducive, so it can influence students to be autonomous learner. And then previous study. Here, the researcher have a four previous study. First, about a paper conducted by Zhao 2015 entitled Study on the Meditation of English Teachers in the Students' Autonomous Learning. And second, a thesis conducted by Rahmawan 2020 entitled Students' Obstacle on Autonomous English Learning. And third, a thesis conducted by Zulaiha and Harida 2017 entitled Autonomous Learning Strategy of the Successful Non-Traditional Students. And then the last, a thesis conducted by Golami 2016 entitled Self-Assessment and Learner Autonomy. From Golami thesis that the researcher um, get instrument 44 questionnaire from this thesis. So in this research, um, the form the form of Golami research is experiment, while the research that will be carried out by the researchers is an analysis of the extent of the autonomy level of EESP students. So the thesis conducted by Golami is important in this research because is a guideline to is a guideline to to the researcher to make a questionnaire because the researcher will adopt questionnaire from Golami thesis. And then the last chapter is chapter 3 methodology. First, research method. This research will use quantitative research. According to Aliaga and Gunderson, 2000 and 2002, page 81, quantitative research is explaining phenomena by collecting numerical data that are analyzed using mathematically based method, in particular statistic. It means that in this research, the researcher will use the statistical to to present the data because in this research, the researcher will use quantitative methods. And then second, population. According to Arikunto, 2006 page 120 states total sampling is taking the same sample as the existing population. So here, the researcher sample for will use sample all of the population. The sample is from semester 1 quantity 117, from semester 3 quantity 115, from semester 5 quantity 66. So the total in this research is 298. Third, that data instrument. The researcher will use questionnaire adopted from Golami 2016. The questionnaires includes 44 statements based on 9 dimensions that relate to language learning. The item in this dimensions show whether learner display a greater degree of control in a particular factors in their learning. The dimensions focus in readiness for self-direction, independent work in language learning, importance of class or teachers, role of teacher explanation or supervision, and then um, language learning activities outside the class, selecting content, intrinsic motivation, assessment motivation, and also interest in other. In the questionnaires, All of the respondents have to answer each item on 4 points. And then data collection technique. In this study that the researcher will use some steps to collect the data. First, prepare the questionnaire. Second, the validity of the questionnaire with expert or lecturer. Third, give the questionnaire in Google Form to samples. And then analyze the data from the questionnaires. After that, the validity of the data with expert or lecturer. And the last, displaying the data from the questionnaire. And the last in methodology is data analysis technique. In data analysis technique, that the researcher will use questionnaire adopted from Golang as an instrument. And also to measure the interpretation of the data using a Likert scale. The Likert scale, according to the Jolly 2008, page 228, is a scale that can be used to measure the attitudes, opinions, and perception of a person or group of people about assumption or educational questionnaire. And then to the inter and then here the researcher will use independent statements. If independent statements, um, if the respondent choose always true, so the score is 4, and if dependent always true, the score is 1. And then if mostly true, the score of independent 3, and dependent 2. If rarely true, the score of independent 2, and the score of dependent is 3. And then if never true, the score of dependent is 1 and the score of dependent is 4. And also it is the interpretation of the data. The score, if the level is dependent, the score is 1 until 1, this 1,75. If the level barely autonomous, the score is 1,76 until 2,5. If the level is autonomous, the score is 2,51 until 3,25. If the level is highly autonomous, so the score is 3,26 until 4. Uh, so here the researcher will use the formula from the weighting scale. It is the formula from weighting scale. If M is obtained interpretive figures, frequency, weighted value, scale, or score, addition number of respondents. It is the aspect to formulate the data. So that's all from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.